This government has no border plan and no immigration plan. While the minister's busy rage tweeting and name calling, he has no answer for how to manage over 3 million temporary residents before the deadline, no strategy for removals, and no serious border enforcement measures are in place. The minister's antics are not just embarrassing, they're reckless, risking chaos at our border and straining relations with our closest allies. So, will the immigration minister quit his histrionics and present a Canada First plan to fix the immigration system he broke?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Madam Speaker, let's talk about the Conservatives' record when it comes to the border. They slashed over 1,000 jobs from CBSA, even when they were warned that that would be an increase of human trafficking, drugs, and guns into this country. What else did they do? They cut 600 officers from the counter-terrorism unit that eventually had to be pulled from other departments within the RCMP because their mismanagement was so bad, and it left officers off the line of duty for things like organized crime.
The honourable member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Madam Speaker, the government didn't answer my earlier question on a very serious issue, so I'll ask it again. U.S. Border Patrol released alarming data. CBS Boston reports that 155 suspects on the terror watch list were encountered on the southern U.S. border this year, but 361 suspects on the watch list were arrested on the northern border. More than double the number, and now Canada is threatened with 25% tariffs because of illegal border crossings. So what is the government's plan to protect our borders, our trade, and Canadians from terrorism?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, I'll tell you our plan. Our plan is to invest in our border services agencies, unlike what the Conservatives did. They cut over 1,000 employees from CBSA and have the nerve to try and lecture us about border management. They cut over 600 employees from the RCMP dealing with counterterrorism, and what had to happen? Those members had to be brought in from other departments within the RCMP just to make up for the mismanagement of border services and counterterrorism under the Conservatives. Our plan will be
the honourable member for Niagara Falls.
Speaker, after 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, everything is broken. For over a century, there was a consensus on the importance and value of immigration, yet that is being placed at risk by this government's incompetence. By December of next year, 3 million visas will expire, and individuals will need to obey the law and voluntarily leave Canada. The problem is, there's no way to ensure that they will leave. My question is simple. What is the Prime Minister's plan to enforce and ensure the rule of law so that people who need to leave Canada actually leave?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Immigration is a key to growing our economy and strengthening our communities. Canadians want a robust and sustainable immigration system that sets Canada and all who come here up for success. And the Level Plans is doing just that. We are reducing the number of temporary and permanent residents in short to alleviate pressures on housing and infrastructure. These measures will achieve long-term growth and ensure a well-managed, sustainable immigration system. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Niagara Falls.
Speaker, the hope that someone leaves Canada is not a plan. My own community has 4 international border crossings. Cross-border visitation and tourism have been a strength of our region, yet that is all being placed at risk because of this government's incompetence. We have 3 million expiring visas in Canada by the end of December next year. Without a plan, many of those individuals may attempt to cross the border illegally into the United States. So again, what is the government's plan so that people who need to leave Canada actually leave?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, you want to talk about incompetence. How does the member who represents a border town actually talk to his constituents about the fact that the Conservatives slashed 600 RCMP employees from dealing with counterterrorism, had to pull those employees from other places like dealing with organized crime? How does that member talk to his community about the fact that they cut over 1,000 CBSA agents under their time, which led to an increase of human trafficking, drugs, and guns right into his community?
The Honourable
Member for Abitibi, James Bain. Nunavik.
See footage of a violent carjacker shooting at commuters. And of course, this individual was out on bail. The rate of violent crime in Canada has gone up 50% since this Prime Minister took office. Gun crime has gone up every year since this Prime Minister has been in office. And according to a report just released by the Fraser Institute, Canada's rate of crime is 14% higher than in the United States. When will this Prime Minister reverse his hug-a-thug policies?
Yeah. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Madam Speaker, what we've seen in the last 24 hours in Toronto is completely unacceptable and terrifying to the people in the city that I call home. We need to take action strictly and strongly on exactly what is happening in Toronto. The federal bail law is very, very clear. If someone is at a serious risk of reoffending, they're not to be given bail. I'm going to cite Premier Ford because his reaction was correct. He said, quote, "It's ridiculous. These JPs, these judges need to start keeping people in jail. We need tough judges and tough JPs when it comes to crime. People are fed up with it." That includes people in this House, Madam Speaker. Canadians are fed up with what we're seeing.
The Honourable Member for Fundy Royal.
Madam Speaker, this is ridiculous. These guys have been in government for 9 years.
Yes.
What happened yesterday is a direct result of their policies. Auto theft, Madam Speaker, is up 45% since 2015. In Toronto, it's up 328%. This is a direct result of this government's failure on bail and failure on crime.
Yeah.
Gun crime is up 116%, Madam Speaker. Homicides, 28%. When will this government, when will they step aside so Conservatives can crack down on crime and bring home safe streets for all Canadians?
Honourable Minister of Justice.
Madam Speaker, with respect to being tough on crime, the critical piece is the administration of justice at the level of the province. And I want to point out what Premier Ford just said. He talked about JPs and provincial court judges, both of whom he appoints. What's really illustrated for this from that member from Nova Scotia is that in his very province, JPs who decide things like bail have to have legal training before they're appointed. That is an example of best practice in our federation. That is not the practice in Ontario. If we're going to improve the quality of the justice being rendered, we need to ensure people like JPs deciding things about serious risks of reoffending have legal training in Ontario the way they do.
The Honourable Member for Sturgeon River Parkland.
Well, Madam Speaker, after 9 years of crime, chaos, and disorder, the legacy of this NDP Liberal government's radical, soft-on-crime policies is in tatters. This Prime Minister's hug-a-thug recklessness has caused violent crime to surge, and Canadians were shocked to see a violent, armed carjacking on our streets. It's time to put Canadians' safety first. When will this government admit their failure, crack down on violent repeat offenders who are spreading deadly drugs and violence in communities, or better yet, just get out of the way so Conservatives can get the job done?
Yeah. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Madam Speaker, the people that decide to arrest an individual are police. The people that prosecute the bad guys are provincial crowns. The people that render the decisions are provincially appointed JPs and provincial judges. The people that run the jails for people to be placed in when they're denied bail are provincial detention centres. All of those relate to the province. The province needs to do its part, invest in the resources for cops, crowns, JPs and detention centres so we can keep Canadian cities safe.